Hi there, it's Kevin with RogueDeckBuilder.com here with a top 10 list of cards that I want to brew around card Mnemonic Betrayal in MTG Arena Standard. This is a very, very fun deck to play. Mnemonic Betrayal reminds me of Villainous Wealth from Khans of Tarkir, and I had a lot of fun with that the last time around, but this one actually even seems a little bit better now that I've played it. Villainous Wealth was an X spell with the Sultai colors, 3 of the Sultai colors in X, to exile the top X cards of an opponent's library, and then you can cast all of the cards, non-land cards, with converted mana cost X or less. So you wanted to pump a ton of mana into Villainous Wealth and hopefully cast a bunch of unknown cards off the top of your opponent's library. The key difference between that and Mnemonic Betrayal is that it's very known information, so you can actually wait until you know there's a lot of good cards to cast. If nothing else too, you can use this as kind of like a overcosted reverse Snapcaster Mage for 3 mana, and possibly even get like 2 or 3 spells out of your opponent. A game today, I actually went up against a red deck, and that's exactly what happened. I had 6 mana, cast Mnemonic Betrayal, and cast 3 of their 1-drops, and stabilized through that. So that's not unheard of. I think this card's very powerful, and it's incredibly fun to play. So, of course, you want a lot of mana with the Mnemonic Betrayal. We're going to pair it with Azor's Gateway. Azor's Gateway is a artifact that is 2 mana, and then 1 tap, you draw a card, then exile a card from your hand. If you have 5 or more converted mana costs that are different, exiled with Azor's Gateway, you gain 5 life, transform it, and it transforms into the Sanctum of the Sun, which adds a ton of mana, your life total, to your mana pool. And that's also going to add that 5 life that you gained, of course. And it just means that if you have Azor's Gateway flipped, have a reasonable life total, Mnemonic Betrayal is going to be basically your entire opponent's graveyard. So I already had this scenario happen many times. Of course, we want this in a blue-black control shell where we can control the board till we're ready to go off. Was going to stream this deck today, however, YouTube crashed, and yeah, we didn't get a stream, so I'm going to try to push it off till tomorrow. So if you want to see this deck in action, come over Wednesday evening, afternoon. We're going to try to stream. In the future, most deck techs will be parts of streams rather than doing outright deck techs. I also will do some more of the highly edited video deck techs, but I'm going to try to get away from this sort of point-and-shoot deck tech style. I hope you appreciate this video, though. This is a good one. Very fun. Take it to your F&M. Let's go down the list, though. So we want to help our opponent get cards in their graveyard. On the 1-drop slot, Vicious Rumors has actually been very good. I like it against Unknown. Of course, in the sideboard, we usually are going to flip this out for some better 1-drops that are more key to the deck that we're facing. But against Unknown Game 1 matches, Vicious Rumor, it takes away a card out of your opponent's hand, puts one from the top of their library, and you gain a life, and that deals the damage to them. All of those things kind of add up. Most of these type of cards have fallen flat in the past where you just have an opponent discard a card. You want a key card like Thought Erasure, Inquisition of Kozilek, or Duress. However, Vicious Rumors is pretty good against both aggro and control. You're 1-for-1ing. It doesn't really cost you anything on that first turn because we have no other 1-drops. I don't like running Opt. I think this is just strictly better than Opt. Late game, if we have it, we can either throw it away to the Azor's Gateway or the Chemister's Insight, so it's not a dead card for that reason. So, very impressed with that. On our 2-drop slot, we have Essence Scatter, 2 Cast Downs, 4 Thought Erasures. Thought Erasure is also very good to rip out your opponent's hand and surveil 1. And then, of course, we have the Azor's Gateway. And then the key card of this deck is Search for Azcanta. We're not going to run a lot of other card draw in this deck because we rely on Azor's Gateway and Search for Azcanta to do that job for us. Now, a lot of white decks are very good at clearing the board. In blue-black, we need to be 1-for-1ing our opponent. So card advantage through a renewable resource is very important, so especially with fixing the top of your library. We just can't draw cards indiscriminately. We need key cards at the right time. So Search for Azcanta does very well in a deck that has a lot of surveil. It starts off with cards like Vicious Rumors and a lot of like Cast Down and Essence Scatter. Pretty soon this card's going to flip. It's going to allow you to then start digging for those cards, and especially digging for like the Mnemonic Betrayal when we're ready to go off. The good thing too is when it does flip, it can add a blue mana to your mana pool, so it's almost like mana ramp in this form. The Discovery Dispersal is not a 2-drop, it's actually a 7-drop, as it counts as 7 for Azor's Gateway. However, we are most likely to be using the Discovery, again, to feed the graveyard for Search for Azcanta. But Dispersal is another card that has absolutely impressed me, as if you're going against Control Mirrors and they have a card even like Teferi, you can Dispersal back their Teferi and make them discard if this is the last card in their hand. I've been very impressed with that. And it's just another great card to throw into Azor's Gateway for the 7 converted mana costs, as we have a lot of 2s there, but, you know, nothing really high, and this one can fit that bill. Thought Erasure, of course, like I said, is very powerful, ripping out key cards. It's good against mid-range, good against even aggro, good against control. It's a great 4 of. The Sinister Sabotage is my premier counterspell that I like to use. Just 4 of in this list. You could run like 3, maybe put in a Notion Rain. That seems like a pretty decent little scry, or Surveil 2, draw 2 cards, take 2 damage. However, I just didn't have room for it. Again, we're going to mess around. Maybe I'll put a 1 of list in it to see how well it works. I'm still not even clear if Azor's Gateway as a 3 of is the right route, or if 2 of is good. I probably don't want 4 of, because you tend to get, you want the 1 of Azor's Gateway, protect it, and then flip it. So, and I don't want to redeem a Mythic. That's kind of the bigger issue here. We have a Plaguecrafter, another card I've been very impressed with, because if your opponent doesn't have a creature or a planeswalker out, they have to discard a card. It's still putting a card in the graveyard for us to use later on. We're running Plaguecrafter for another card later on, I'll explain. The Chemister's Insight, only like a 1 of. Like I said, I don't like the indiscriminate draws. I like more of the digging through Search for Azcanta, but I think a 1 of is fine. Again, this is really the Chemister's Insight versus Notion Rain. I'm highly debated, but the Chemister's Insight is also good at getting rid of excess Azor's Gateways or Vicious Rumors or Thought Erasures. The Ravenous Chupacabra is a great removal spell, another 4-drop, as well as Vraska's Contempt, kind of an on-bo in this deck because you're exiling cards that you might want to use later on, but the 2 life can hit a planeswalker and a creature, I think is a necessary evil right now in the format. 3 Eldest Reborns, it's our 5-drop slot, and it's also another way to cast our opponent's stuff. Opponent sacks a creature, discards a card, and then we get a card back. It's a 3-for-1. What can't you like about that? Thought about splashing for Nicol Bolas. That's another thing, another experiment for another day. I think Nicol Bolas actually works really, really well in this deck too. It's not that bad if you flip an Azor's Gateway to be able to then flip a Nicol Bolas. So that's another thing you can try in this kind of 4-drop slot. And then we're a 1 of Syncopate. I like Syncopates because it's always a mind game with your opponent. If you game 1 Syncopate something, they will play around Syncopate for the rest of the match. So I always like, if I'm in blue, trying to put in 1 Syncopate for that reason. The mana base is going to be quite straightforward. 8 islands, 8 swamps, and 4 Drowned Catacombs, 4 Watery Graves for a total of 24 lands. So this is a very mana-intensive deck, but we're going to be hitting our land drops, and we can get rid of excess land drops to Azor's Gateways, Chemister's Insights, or the multitude of Surveil. So again, this main, that's why I have the Plaguecrafter and Ravenous Chupacabra for the Eldest Reborn. It gives us at least some way to get back cards, or back a creature if our opponent doesn't have one. This can be very frustrating if you're going up against another control-based deck. I did play a match where I milled game 1 because my opponent literally didn't play any threats except for Teferi, and I took care of all their Teferis, and there was nothing for me to actually get back and win the game with. And so, because Teferi puts itself on top of its owner's library, and it just didn't do anything at that point against my opponent by the time I milled. Luckily, game 2, my opponent actually put in threats through the whole switcheroo, and I was actually able to kill my opponent with their threats, games 2 and 3. Anyway, let's go on to the sideboard. Sideboard, you want to run a lot of cards that will switch out perfectly. So for our 1-drop Deadweight and Duress, they can usually take the place of the Vicious Rumors. So a 2-2 split, or we can bring in all 4 versus particular deck like red. I will bring in both Deadweights and Duresses, but then at that point I usually do keep Vicious Rumors as well. But versus, many decks I will take out Vicious Rumors, especially Golgari. 1 of Negate, it switches perfectly with the Essence Scatter. A lot of times it's not good versus both decks. Mnemonic of Craving is going to come in versus the hyper-aggressive decks, and also switches out pretty good versus things like Thought Erasure and other Azor's Gateway, or even something like Discovery to Dispersal. You can take those out and throw in some Moment of Cravings. 1 of Disinformation Campaign, this is kind of to see if it's actually worthwhile. We have a ton of Surveil in this deck, and it forces our opponent to discard a card, we still draw a card. It really does what we want to do in this deck. The 4th Thief of Sanity is our version of the switcheroo. We are going to have no creatures worth killing game 1. Hopefully our opponent sides out all of their creature removal. And then game 2, the Thief of Sanity can just work its wonders. This card, it mills your opponent 3 basically. You get one of those cards and you can cast it. So in a Thief deck, it's right on theme, right on what we want to be doing. Unmoored Ego, this card's actually quite powerful. We're going to be milling our opponent's cards and getting some information if they actually do use their graveyard. Like, I was able to Unmoored Ego Teferis before, risk factors versus the risk factor decks. It gets rid of them, gone for good. I think this is a very good card in the sideboard especially when you can lead off with like a Duress and then know a card that's in hand and rip it out. That's always a good play as well. One of Ritual of Soot. There's not a lot of good premier removal spells. There's also one from the Golden Demise, I believe is what it's called, from Rivals of Ixalan. However, I think this one hits a little bit more creatures like the Jadelight Ranger. That's usually all it's going to come in against, is like Jadelight Ranger, Steely Champion type decks. And I probably will bring in it. It's good as a 1-of versus like Boros and Red, but it's not the greatest board wipe. And then our other switcheroo is going to be the Nezahal Primal Tide. This is a great mirror breaker. This is of course a 7/7 that if your opponent casts a non-creature spell, you at least get to draw a card. If you can discard 3 cards to X out and then return it back under play. So can't be countered. It's a quick clock. This is typically what you do versus control. Put in something they have to deal with, especially if they've removed a lot of their creature removal. So fun deck. Again, it has some really showy stuff. So far, the deck's pretty even, about a 50-50 splits of wins and losses. We're going to do it in a competitive, constructive for the stream to really showcase the sideboard. And then we'll probably tinker with the list as we go along, because there's definitely some good stuff that can go in these. Like I said, Nicol Bolas looks pretty good as an option. Again, I don't really want to be playing creatures for them to keep in the removal, though. That's kind of the gist of the deck. Join me tomorrow evening or tomorrow afternoon. We'll try to get this streamed. Hopefully we can have some awesome matches with it. And this is impressed me, above and beyond impressed me. This Mnemonic Betrayal, even if you have to cast it as a Snapcaster, reverse Snapcaster Mage, it's if you get 2 cards, it's, you know, card advantage at that point. Like I said, very good on my testing even versus aggro decks when you take their shocks and use them against them type thing. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this list. We'll have a link in the description below, as well as on the Rogue Deck Builder channel. If you're interested in buying this deck, you can always purchase this directly from us, and all the proceeds go to support the channel. So support your local game store first, of course, but if you don't have a local game store or don't want to support your local game store, support your creators next. And that's how we're kind of keeping the Gone Rogue Game Studio, is what I like to call it, alive and well. Our store is just, it's really, really tough in the online business right now, competing with Amazon and TC Player and whatnot. So I appreciate everyone that does take advantage of their Patreon market match discount you get from being a patron, or just by outright purchasing card singles and sealed product directly from me. So if you're interested in cheap cards, definitely do go and check out the Patreon. I shield enough, but I try to give people way worth their money if they do join the Patreon. So anyway, come join me again. Any questions, leave them in the comment section. We'll be able to address them during stream. Thanks for watching.